The Biden document saga continues, and it's not looking good. Serious concerns about people who might have had access to Joe Biden's garage where some of these documents were found. We're talking about a residence in Wilmington, Delaware. You see Joe Biden slowly backing that very cherished Corvette right into the garage where those documents were found. Now, we don't know if they're right on top of those boxes or what else is in there. Or those are Hunter's boxes. We don't want to look inside. But regardless, you can see the president is now facing some serious questions because we were told by everybody what a catastrophe this was when it involved Donald Trump. And so we're going to go through all of the media reactions, some very interesting questions about whether Karine Jean Pierre was involved in any of these delays, and so on and so forth. But before we get into all of that, let's do a quick refresh on the timeline because there's been a lot of developments. And you can see here, it's starting to get a little bit confusing. And so we're going to run through this very quickly and make sure we're inserting these new developments in the proper places. But first, let's get our bearing straight with the president, because Joe Biden, of course, laid down the appropriate standards about how we should be treating this when he sat down with 60 Minutes some time ago.
And you saw the photograph of the top secret documents laid out on the floor at Mar-a-Lago. What did you think to yourself looking at that image?
How that could possibly happen. How anyone could be that irresponsible.
Unbelievable.
And I thought, what data was in there that may compromise sources and methods? By that, I mean names of people who helped, or et cetera.
Names of people who helped. I mean, like literally, one of his biggest concerns, opening up a folder, getting names and information. Who could have had access to that? How irresponsible. My goodness, what if this was just in a garage where his crackhead son had access? Don't know.
And it's just totally irresponsible.
And you don't know
anything. No, I don't know anything. Now, Merrick Garland, the U.S. Attorney General, came out yesterday and gave us some details on how this all went down. And I want to run through it very, very quickly so we do not forget that this was first found, the first batch was at Penn Biden Center November 4th, months ago, right before the election. They kept it all buried. The FBI started their assessment the day after the election. Garland assigned a specific U.S. prosecutor to take a look at this thing November 14th. The public, up until this moment, has no idea, right? All the Democrats, all the sycophants over there in the media, everybody's still screaming and hyperventilating about Mar-a-Lago, 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 literally posting tweets about what a monster Trump is. Meanwhile, the White House has its own little confidential documents problem on their hands. They get backhanded with another set of documents from Joe Biden on December 20th, when his lawyer, as we talked about yesterday, found another set of documents. Now, up until this point, we didn't know really who his lawyers were. Okay, there were names that were bandied about. We're going to find out today that the media is identifying him as Bob Bauer, this fellow right here. We're going to learn about that from Ed O'Keefe over from CBS News. Bob Bauer apparently is Biden's personal lawyer. We didn't have an image on him yesterday, but he's the person who is filling in some of the gaps, or at least one of them. So Bauer is the person who contacted Robert Lausch, the U.S. attorney. We don't know exactly what that involved. We do know it was on December 20th, and that was the second batch of documents that was found in Biden's garage, literal garage. They said the FBI came in and secured that. I don't know if that happened on December 20th. We don't know the number of those documents. We don't know what the condition of those documents were or how they got there. But it was during his time as vice president. So it was a long time ago. January 5th, still zero notice to America. Nobody has learned about this at all. January 5th, the U.S. government is still investigating this. Merrick Garland is getting a brief from Robert Lausch, who was the U.S. attorney, this fella here, who was appointed to investigate this. Not one single disclosure to anybody. No investigations that were publicized with FBI raids, nothing. All under darkness. We get forward 4 days after they're having this little meeting. 4 days. CBS breaks the story. Okay, so up until this point, the U.S. government was not transparent. Karine Jean Pierre has not come out and said a dang thing about this. Joe Biden, who is going to be the most transparent person, the adult in the room, going to reverse years of Trump negligence, was quiet, mum. And what's going to be very interesting is to correlate some of these statements, right? What were they saying? What were certain people saying when they knew that this was coming down the pike? We'll get there in a minute. So after CBS breaks the news, right, after it's first publicized by the press, not by the White House, then we get damage control. Joe Biden comes out January 10th, issues the Mexico statement when he's down there. No, I'm surprised. I have no idea. I don't really know much of anything. And you know, I don't know anything. So how can you blame me for this type of a statement? Karine came out on January 11th and she lied by omission, in my opinion. She said certain things and she knew there was a December 20th batch of documents that had not been revealed yet. That December 20th batch was known to her, presumably, and she didn't mention it at all. She was asked hard about that, but she didn't specify it. Then on January 12th, we finally get Robert Hur appointed, and they found yet a third document. Now, again, we know very little about this because they have not told us the specific location. They said it's one document. We don't know the classification level and so on and so forth. But it's been a lot, right? And all of this has happened pretty quickly, and they're trying to fast forward over the non-disclosure. Now they're saying, right, the big talking point is that everything is being done transparently and openly, and we're doing the right thing. We're doing the right thing. After you guys got caught, after CBS broke the story, the DOJ may have been doing these things, or they may not have. Would they have appointed a special counsel were it not for CBS breaking the story? Don't know. They would say, so yeah, of course, we were going to tell you all at some point. I'm sure about it, right? We'll see. Now that we have that update, we can pick up with what the special counsel is going to be doing, because there is a full order of appointment. This was sent over by the Justice Department, signed by Merrick Garland. Let's take a look at the order. From the Office of the Attorney General out of Washington, D.C., this is an order appointing Robert K. Hur as special counsel to investigate President Biden. By virtue of authority vested in the Attorney General, including U.S. Code, in order to discharge my responsibility to provide supervision and management of the DOJ, and to ensure a full and thorough investigation of certain matters, I hereby order as follows. Robert Hur is appointed to serve as special counsel for the DOJ. Now, the authority, let's see. The special counsel, Robert Hur, is authorized to conduct the investigation of matters that are the subject of the initial investigation pursuant to the Code of Federal Regulations, led by U.S. Attorney John Lausch, the guy we just talked about, who was in charge of this investigation for evidently months until we learned about it, including the possible unauthorized removal and retention of classified documents or other records discovered at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement. So that's the first location, right? That's number one that they found. Number two is the Wilmington, Delaware private residence of Joe Biden. And so that's the second location, as well as any matters that arose from the initial investigation and may arise from that special counsel's investigation or that are within the scope under the law. And we know that there was at least the third document because that's what Attorney General Merrick Garland said during his press release yesterday. So it could be, I believe it's the same residence, but it's probably a separate location. One's the garage, one's his library. The special counsel is authorized to prosecute federal crimes against the president arising from investigation of these matters. The special counsel is also authorized to refer to the appropriate U.S. attorney discrete prosecutions that may arise from the special counsel's investigation. All of these laws are applicable to the special counsel, signed January 12, 2023 by Attorney General Merrick Garland. U.S. Attorney General, a special prosecutor appointed to investigate the president. Wow. That's a pretty big deal. They made a big deal of this when it was the former president. This is the sitting president. All of the hyperventilation, all of the screaming from the rooftops about what a catastrophe Trump was, and how much he should be punished. It's basically the same situation. Now, we'll learn more about Robert Hur, and we'll see whether or not this goes anywhere. But that is the official order of appointment. January 12th, 2023. Woo! Very, very interesting day in Biden's presidency. And shout out to our friend Red1 on YouTube, who is gifting memberships away over there. Much love to you, Red1. Thank you very much for all your support here. But that is the order of appointment and the timeline. Now let's learn a little bit more about Robert Hur. Robert Hur, according to this individual named Mike Davis on Twitter, he says the following. Now, we've talked a lot about Mike Davis. He's a very, very astute individual. Absolutely well worth a follow. So if you're not already following Mike Davis on Twitter, you should be. Now he works for the Article 3 Project. He is former U.S. Senate Committee Chief Counsel for Nominations, and he was a law clerk to Judge Gorsuch. Here's what he says about Mr. Robert Hur. Robert Hur was the longtime protege of Chris Wray, director of the FBI. You know, that guy who has to go on vacations when he's in the middle of Senate briefings? That guy. Chris Wray was the longtime protege of Rod Rosenstein, which I believe C.A. Human asked us about yesterday on the show. Obama's only 8-year Bush 43 U.S. attorney holdover. Wow, that's pretty interesting. And so you've seen this pattern. You know, when different presidents come in, they ask for resignations from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Clean house. You're going to do my justice now. It's white supremacist time, baby. Forget all the CP stuff. We're just going to focus on white supremacy. Right? Type of same thing. Except this guy, Obama kept Rod Rosenstein over. George Bush, 43, appointed him. Obama kept him over, Rod Rosenstein. Robert Hur then became the protege of Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein, who managed the Mueller probe against President Trump, following the bouncing ball. So Hur, a protege of Deputy Rod Rosenstein, says that Christopher Wray was also the longtime protege of James Comey, right? It's just a big circle. They're all on the same team, one way or the other. Who Wray replaced as FBI director when Trump fired Comey. So it goes Comey, Wray, Rosenstein, Hur. And when Comey just got out of the way, they just put, Wray right in place of him. So here you can see it explained in a LinkedIn friendly format. So Mike Davis put this together, and you can see, if we get myself out of this frame here, that from 2003 to 2005, he says that he was the U.S. counsel and special assistant to Christopher Wray. Oh, that's the FBI director. Reported to the Assistant Attorney General Christopher Wray. Wray reported to Director Comey back during that time. Rosenstein was a fellow Bush DOJ political appointee. Okay, so they're all sort of in the same wheelhouse. Just it's like musical chairs. He goes and works as an associate at King & Spalding. He's a law associate to a law partner, Christopher Wray, in private practice. So then he says that he goes back to the U.S. Department of Justice. He's an assistant U.S. attorney. Then he reported to Rod Rosenstein back when he was working in Maryland. Then he goes back from the DOJ back over to King & Spalding, works as a partner in government investigations and litigation. Law partner with Chris Wray. After that, 3 years and 6 months, goes back over to the government. Works at the DOJ again. This time, he's a number 2 to the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. FBI Director Christopher Wray also reported to Rod Rosenstein. And it just works its way all the way up. Then he goes to the U.S. Attorney. He is in the District of Maryland. And they're all reporting essentially now to Rod Rosenstein. Right? Rod Rosenstein, as we talked about yesterday, carries a lot of baggage in terms of what he authorized for the Mueller investigation and different warrants and all sorts of different stuff. So a lot of questions, though, about this little chain of command and who's working for whom and how this whole thing, unfolds. But that's the lineage that was provided by Mr. Davis, of course. And there's other people out there like Kash Patel and others are saying that there's a lot more here as it relates to Mr. Hur. But he was brought out during the Trump administration, and he communicated about their efforts there at the DOJ during one of those brief appearances when he was back at the DOJ. He was brought in to work on MS-13. Let's listen.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Hur. About 5 weeks ago, I was sworn in as the Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General at the Department of Justice. In that role, I serve as the Principal Advisor to the Deputy Attorney General. I appreciate the chance to talk to you about the Justice Department's aggressive efforts to achieve this administration's goal of dismantling the transnational gang La Mara Salvatrucha, also known as MS-13.
Nice pronunciation.
As you all know, the President is traveling to Long Island tomorrow to talk about our fight to eradicate the violent threat of MS-13. And as we speak, the Attorney General is in El Salvador, where he will spend the next 2 days addressing the root of this problem, the San Salvadorian prisons that house the leaders of this dangerous gang. While there, the Attorney General will meet with members of the Justice Department's Transnational Anti-Gang Task Force on the ground in El Salvador.
Sounds good. I'll see if that, works. Oh, fast forward. Didn't. Everything's still a problem down there at the border. Great. All right. So, all right, that's what they do. Sounds great, but, is this situation still ongoing? Probably. I don't know. Anyways, all right, so he's there. That's what he sounds like. That's what he looks like. That's who's going to be working on the president's special prosecution. And one of the questions that is going to be brought up is about that Wilmington, Delaware residence. This is where Joe Biden was keeping that very nice Corvette, and he's backing it in there where those confidential documents were allegedly found. Now, a big part of what the Donald Trump Mar-a-Lago saga involved was a damage assessment. They said that this was a catastrophe. These confidential documents are floating all over the place. Who knows whether Putin got them or whether Xi got them or whether the Saudis got them when Trump was golfing over there with Don Jr. So we've got to figure out how far this goes. Now, one question would be applicable to Joe Biden here. What about those visitor logs that you keep? Are you going to publish those? Because there is some evidence that Hunter Biden used that facility, maybe even owned it. In fact, you can take a look at Miranda Devine. She's over there on Twitter. And she is basically the authority on all of the bad deeds of Hunter Biden. Has done an outstanding job, written books on this, and is absolutely a follow on Twitter. Must. Here's what she said. In 2018, Hunter Biden claimed he owned the house. The house. It wasn't Joe's garage. Hunter said it was his garage, where the classified documents were kept alongside the Corvette. And Miranda's giving credit over to this one to JJ_talking. So shout out to JJ_talking as well. It appears that Hunter Biden said something like this when he was filling out an application. And all of his ultra personal information has been censored out. So, it complies with the policies. But you can see this is the background screening apply check. And all of these documents were littered all over the laptop and, they're all over the place. But this is, it says first Robert Hunter Biden, the current address, Beverly Hills Road, city, Wilmington, state, Delaware. Oh, here, the social security number redacted, the actual street address redacted, the actual driver's license number redacted, and so on. But it does look like this is a background request. The current resident is the company's name. It says OASCO PC. And there's a phone number redacted. There's an email redacted. Move-in date is on 2017, and it looks like the monthly rent for that place is $50,000. Current residence. And if you take a look at this little checkbox here, this is a very interesting checkbox. We love interesting checkboxes here. Sometimes a checkbox will be all you need. The question, do you own, lease, or are you living with a family or friend? And this says own, own, own. Hunter Biden says, I have read and I agree to this information. Signed, Hunter Biden. So from this document, it looks like Hunter Biden is saying he owns the residence at Barley Hill in Wilmington, Delaware, which is where they found the confidential documents. It also looks like he pays $50,000 a month for that residence, which is interesting because according to this document, it sort of makes it sound like, Joe doesn't actually really even own that house. Maybe Hunter Biden owns the house, or maybe Hunter Biden thinks he owns the house, regardless of what the deed says. Certainly seems like Hunter Biden is using that as leverage to get past this background screening check or whatever it is he's trying to get done here. But that would sort of mean that he's got access to that garage, right? I mean, there's no way that he owns a house or he thinks he owns a house and he can't get access to that garage. So Hunter Biden, who's currently not been prosecuted for any crimes, been under investigation for quite some time by the Delaware U.S. attorney, is an individual who, as we've talked about here, having amazing conversations with very astute individuals like Garrett Ziegler from MarcoPoloUSA.org and others, who have done incredible work investigating Hunter Biden, and they've come up with conclusions about a dozen different criminal charges that would be applicable to him outside of the ordinary, simple prostitution crimes or whatever, right? That I'm sure an aggressive prosecutor would like to pursue if this were, let's say, Trump Jr. But the point is, not somebody who is authorized, I would guess, to see these top secret materials one way or the other. And evidently he had access to them. Now, another individual on Twitter known as Benny Johnson grabbed this bit of information. On Hunter Biden's recent Delaware driver's license, his current residence is listed as Barley Mill Road, the same address where Joe Biden kept troves of stolen classified documents. You're kidding me. Yeah, that's what this one is. All redacted, all the personal ultra identifying information is redacted to comply with the policies. And he's a public figure. We know his date of birth. We know his name. All of this is there. But what you see is Barley Mill Road, Wilmington, Delaware. Hunter Biden. Well, so he had access to that garage. And that means he probably also had access to Joe's library and his filing cabinet, his very secure filing cabinet like this one. Like this one right here. Confidential documents in here, Joe. Right? That's ridiculous. So Hunter Biden can apparently just waltz right into the garage, maybe even take the Corvette out for a spin as he's reading his morning intelligence briefs. Very irresponsible. But what is the media saying about this? Well, they're unhappy about it. And they're not letting Karine Jean Pierre off easily. Now, I went through the whole press briefing today. She did not want to talk about this topic, but the media would not let it go. And it was a lot of fun. And we're going to finish with this question from this fella, which makes Karine Jean Pierre, I think, a little bit squirrely in her response. She gives a forceful answer. We'll see how that holds up. But we get started from the media with this guy. Now, he had a very interesting introduction. He asked, I think, 5 questions in total. The first 4 weren't about the classified documents. And so Karine Jean Pierre thought she was almost off the hook. But this guy then cracked the shell. He's asked about the economy and diversity and whatever else. And Karine's like, oh gosh, finally, we're going to get off this topic. And then he slid this one in.
White House officials have been interviewed by the special counsel or by the Justice Department involving the classified documents.
So what I'll say from here is any questions that you may have about the review, about the process, I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
Not going to happen.
I would also refer you to my colleagues over at the White House Counsel. I'm not going to get into any specifics from here.
Okay, so that was her first question, right? That he asks, that's cracking the shell. And she's like, well, okay, good. I got that one done. Whew, all right. So, okay, good. It's going to be a good day. They're going to ask about the, Japanese prime minister. He's coming in and, okay, I told him I'm not going to talk about this today. Next question comes from this woman. And she's like, all right, listen, we're about to get heavy right now.
Go ahead, Mary.
Aside from the special counsel, aside from this review, I just have a question about process and classified documents
Yeah.
that they're handling, because I think there's some confusion amongst the public and even in this room. What is the process to make sure that classified documents aren't accidentally or intentionally taken when a president or vice president leaves office? What's the protocol, or is this sort of just a self-review system?
Yeah. In other words, is this going to continue to happen? Like, how is it? Like, we've got like 3 different incidents now. We've got the Penn Biden Center. We've also got the garage documents, and we've also got the filing cabinets documents. So like, are you guys what are you doing? What's the process for any of this?
It's a good question. I would, on the process and how that works, I would certainly refer you to the White House counsel's office. They would know that. They can walk you through that. My colleagues there, and I know many of you have been in touch with my colleagues in the last 24 hours, in direct touch, and answering many of your questions. So I would refer you to them on the specific process, so that they will certainly guide you in the right way.
Okay.
But as far as you know, is it ever okay for classified documents to be mixed with personal evidence?
What I can say, what I can say is what the president has said before, what I have said multiple times.
All right.
We take this very seriously. The president takes classified information, classified documents very seriously. But look, I've said this before. We have addressed this issue multiple times at length, and we have been fully cooperating with the Department of Justice, and now we will be doing the same with the Special Counsel's Office, just to be prudent here and just to make sure that we are consistent. I will refer you anything that is related to this, as it relates to the review, to the Department of Justice or my colleagues at the White House Counsel Office, and we see it as the best way to move forward. We want to respect the process, and so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to refer you to the Department of Justice.
Yikes. What the heck did she just say? I think she said the same thing like 3 or 4 times in multiple different ways.
You're confident he followed whatever protocol was in place?
Again, this is something.
So he would have followed the protocols that you referred him to, right? She's asking pretty good questions. What's the process? She says, I refer you over to the White House for the White House counsel for the specifics of the process. Okay, well, okay, fine. I'll go get the details from them. But can you tell me about whether they were followed, yes or no?
That he takes very seriously, the president, when it comes to classified documents, when it comes to
Which
classified
she doesn't want to
information.
admit his criminality.
I'm not going to go into any specifics from here. If you have any questions, anything further that's related to the review, or I will refer you to the Department of Justice or my colleagues over at the White House Counsel's Office, who I know many of you who I'm staring at right now has been in close touch. Go ahead, Ed.
All right. So you can see this is getting pretty precarious for them because there's a couple differences between Biden and Trump. One, Trump was not in office anymore, right? Trump was retired. So his biggest risk is criminal indictment. Biden has that. He has the same risk of criminal indictment, but he's also the sitting president. So he's got a little bit more at risk in terms of removal, resigning, all sorts of other things. The other serious advantage that Donald Trump has in this situation is he doesn't have to send somebody from his team out in front of the media basically every day of the week to answer questions about this, right? Okay, Trump can just sit, just be silent. He's got the right to remain silent. And his attorneys have gone out there. We saw many of them out there getting out there and sort of playing the PR war, fighting for Trump, calling it library books and all sorts of other very interesting analogies. And it was useful, but he's not obligated to do that. Okay, Karine, the White House, they're obligated to show up and answer questions every single day, or as many, as they will allow. And so the media just has an open forum. It's just like walking in. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. She's got to show up every day and get hit with these questions. Trump doesn't have to do that. So Trump actually has the right to remain silent that he can use. Biden kind of, he has it technically, but it looks horrible if every day we get this round and around, just word vomit, just regurgitating out of her mouth with zero answers. And the media is not real happy about it. And so we'll fast forward over to Ed, and we'll learn a little bit more about the lawyers who are involved in the case. Because Ed O'Keefe asked some pretty good questions yesterday, and there was a big sort of battle with her between Karine Jean Pierre and Ed O'Keefe. And I think we turned that into a short that we're going to be publishing tonight. So we're going to go into Ed O'Keefe. They're talking about the lawyers. This is Biden's personal lawyer, who was evidently the person who picked up the documents. We're going to learn more about him. We're going to talk about the Mark Elias deleted tweet right after we learn about our friends at 4 Patriots, because of course you know that a food shortage could be coming in this country. Experts have written about it as recently as July. We've got drought, we have inflation, we have new policies. America's food supply is being pushed to its breaking point. And that's why survival food is more important now than ever. And you can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food kits. They create amazing food. This stuff is good for 25 years. It's hand-packed in family-owned facilities across the United States. It gives jobs to over 200 Americans. And their kits are sturdy. They're water-resistant. They stack easily. Different delicious breakfast, lunches, and dinners, and you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. All you have to do is add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And you can go to 4patriots.com right now and use code Robert to save 10% off anything in the store on your first purchase, including a 3-month survival kit. You'll get a famous guarantee from them on anything in the store for a year after your order, plus free shipping on anything over $97. They're called 4 Patriots because a portion of all sales are donated to charities that support our veterans. And you can go to 4patriots.com and save 10% off using code Robert today. All right, my friends. And so let's get right back to it now. Let's check in with Ed O'Keefe, who's going to be shedding some light on the lawyers who were involved in the Biden case.
On a few things from yesterday. When was the president informed about the attorney general's decision to appoint a special counsel? How and by whom?
So, the specifics on that, I can tell. Here's what I can tell you. I can tell you that we were not giving a heads up. I was asked that question yesterday. We did not know that was the announcement was going to come yesterday until after it happened. So I can clear the deck there and let you know.
So that matches what they said about the Trump saga. They said that DOJ didn't tell Biden anything about any Trump decisions either.
Anything else specific to when the president knew or anything that's related to this, I would refer you to the White House counsel's office. I know many of you that I'm looking at right now has been in close touch with my colleague there. And so I would continue to refer you to my colleague at the White House counsel's office.
One of the things that they finally confirmed for us is that Bob Bauer is indeed the president's personal attorney.
Bob Bauer is indeed the president's personal attorney. This was confirmed by White House counsel.
Some of this. Given that the Justice Department cited the personal counsel as having made this initial outreach to National Archives and has been in touch with the Justice Department, is that the person who these questions should be directed to? Why the White House counsel?
Biden's personal lawyers were the people who picked up the documents. That was Bob Bauer, who we're going to learn about in a minute. So why do you keep referring us over to the White House counsel? That's sort of Biden's like White House lawyer, not his personal lawyer. You keep saying they have statements on this. But why not Biden's personal lawyers? Because they were the ones who actually got the documents. I mean, if Biden's being prosecuted criminally or investigated criminally by a special prosecutor, maybe we should be talking to him?
I will say this again. Whatever the White House counsel, my colleague told you in your conversation, I know you guys just spoke or connected earlier today. I would ask them that question. And anything related to the review, I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
And regarding the extraordinary measures that the Treasury Secretary announced.
All right, so that was a separate question. So again, 2 non-answers on this. But she does confirm that they didn't know anything about it, right? When Merrick Garland made the decision to go and announce this, evidently he didn't communicate any of that to Biden. We'll see. Now, he did tell us that Bob Bauer was the individual who was Biden's attorney, and that's what this guy looks like right here. We found his Wikipedia, and he's got a long history as an attorney for Democrats. They tell us Robert F. Bauer, an American attorney, served under the White House under a White House counsel under President Barack Obama. So now he's Joe Biden's evidently personal lawyer, right? Worked as the White House counsel for Barack. Now he's Biden's personal lawyer, according to Ed O'Keefe from CBS. Was President Obama's personal attorney and general counsel during the president campaign. He was named to the White House counsel, returned to private practice at some point. During the Joe Biden presidential campaign, Bauer participated in mock debate sessions with Biden, impersonating Donald Trump. Personal life, married to Anita Dunn, the former director of communications at the White House. 4 children. Anita Dunn is a political strategist, senior advisor to Joe Biden, White House comms director during the Obama administration. All right, so they're all connected, right? Everybody's just one big happy family there in D.C. But that's Bob Bauer. So we're going to want to know a lot more about that guy. What was his fee agreement saying he was supposed to be doing there, packing Joe Biden's office? That's interesting. Now, there's something else interesting about other lawyers, especially this fella, Mark Elias. Earlier in the week, we talked about a very interesting deleted tweet from Mark Elias, the Democrat super lawyer who many think is like a legal Jesus. And we summarize this into a short, which I will play now because there was a tremendous response to this short. Let's refresh our recollection about what we talked about previously. Interesting tweet from Mark Elias. It says, Mark Elias, the media is missing the really, really big reason why the raid today is a potential blockbuster in American politics. Finger point down below. 18 U.S. Code 2071, concealment, removal, and mutilation. Oh, the statute we just read. And look what Mark has highlighted here for us. Shall forfeit his office and be disqualified from holding any office under the United States. So this is the big potential blockbuster, according to Mark Elias. Now, if you were to go over to Mark Elias's Twitter account, you'll notice that this tweet is not there. If you try to find it, here's the screen that you'll get. That's the actual URL. And when you click that link, guess what is there now? Oh, very, very convenient down here. Sorry, that tweet has been deleted. Interesting tweet. All right, so that is what we talked about earlier in the week. And I wanted to share with you a very interesting retweet on that. Now, I was suspicious about this because I thought that maybe after the announcement from Joe Biden and the White House that he had some classified documents, that a bunch of the Twitter Democrats would start cleaning up their timelines, right? They would all go back and start deleting this stuff after the news broke, after the timeline showed we all learned about it. If we go back to this timeline, the public didn't learn about this until January 9th, when CBS broke the story. Now, the White House knew about this a long time ago. December 20th, all the way back to November 4th. So my thesis was that people like Mark Elias, they deleted it after January 9th. But hold on a minute. Sunshine State. At Found in Sunshine was able to find the following. According to the Wayback Machine, the tweet was there on December 3rd. 2022, but it was deleted by December 8th, 2022. Oh, that's even more interesting, isn't it? So the tweet was deleted after the White House knew about this, but before the public did. Now, Sunshine says very prescient, very convenient, very good timing on that one. Pretty interesting. Now, if you want to mind map this out, because of course we like to do that, here's what it would look like. We would take this tweet from Mark Elias, and we thought that he deleted this tweet sometime around here, sometime around January 9th, or maybe January 10th, when the rest of the world learned about this. But no, it was somewhere more like in here, like December 8th or 9th, right around that moment. after the White House found out about this, but before the story broke in public. And so I don't know where I just moved that to. But you get the point. It's supposed to be tucked away right in here nicely, somewhere around this date. Let's see if we can get it to work. All right, close enough. We're going to tuck it right in here so our timeline's nice and pretty. There it is. That's where we wanted it. The question is, why was it conveniently deleted between 12/3 and 12/08? Was there advanced knowledge about this? And there could have been, because he's a lawyer. Maybe they were meeting with him. They said, hey, Mark, you're a great lawyer. You win for Democrats all over this country. You beat the snot out of the Republicans. We'd love you to represent us. Could be. And they sent over an email and, well, what's going on? And Mark goes, whoo. You know, I'm going to just go ahead and delete some tweets off my timeline. You know, just do some regular old cleanup. Because of a weird feeling, or because maybe there was some information that he got his hands on somehow. Very, very interesting little development there. And so what I think would be also interesting is to see if, if people are research wizards out there, right? All the research wizards, all the weaponized, people out there. When were people deleting tweets? Were they deleting tweets that were looking bad for Joe Biden before January 9th? Were they cleaning up their timelines before the public knew? And if so, why? Why were they deleting all those tweets? What did they know? And how did that informational supply chain connect all the dots? Because the public didn't know until January 9th. Very interesting. All right, and we'll continue to follow that, of course. Now, we know more about Mr. Bob Bauer. There's another individual who is White House counsel. His name is Sauber. Okay, we got Bauer and Sauber. It's going to be a lot. So we've got Biden's personal lawyer and the lawyer who also works at the White House. And this person in the media asks about that other person. All right. Well, if we can't get Biden's personal lawyer here to talk about any of this stuff, can we bring White House counsel over here then?
Called over early. Go ahead, Karen. You've several times today referred people to the White House counsel for questions about the process and the review. Would you bring Richard Sauber here or someone from his team to answer these questions in the briefing room in a formal capacity?
So look, the White House counsel's office has provided information on this this week as appropriate. Again, I think I just said this, I've said this multiple times during this briefing, that I know in the last 24 hours, my colleagues at the White House Counsel White House Counsel Office has been in touch with many of you and has answered a lot of your questions. And so that will continue. You reach out to them and they will certainly engage. And so I'm going to leave it there. But again, anything that is related to this review, I would send you to Department of Justice. Again, if there is something specific to this that you want from us, I would refer you to the White House Counsel office.
We're asking for all sorts of
Is the White House
specifics.
concerned that this investigation is going to overshadow what you are trying to do right now, what your message is right now?
Look, our message is very clear, and it will continue to be just that. And you've seen it. That's why when I started the briefing, I laid out all of the kind of progress that we have made just this week alone. When you think about the Inflation Reduction Act, when you think about how it's going to...
And she did. She came out and she said, we're awesome. Everything that we do is amazing. And they're saying, yeah, but you kind of lied to everybody for a couple months. You probably shouldn't have done that. You're making us all look like idiots. This guy also snuck in a question about this. Let's see what he had to say.
Thanks. U.S. Attorney John Lush was looking into this for several weeks before. He was in touch with...
Looking into what exactly?
The classified documents. Okay. He was in touch with President Biden's counsel. I wanted to know, was President Biden, was the White House surprised that along with Merrick Garland that they decided that more investigation was needed and a special counsel was appointed?
The question is, after Lausch was appointed, okay, this got all reported back over to Merrick Garland at some point, and then he said, okay, let's put Lausch on there. Lausch then at some point did the investigation, briefed Merrick Garland. Still, the whole country had no idea. Then on January 5th, they say, okay, it's time to, I guess, make a decision about the appointment of the special counsel. Then it takes another week or so to go find Robert Hur. He says, sure, I'll do the job. And then they announce it.
Tell you is that we were not given a heads up that Attorney General Garland was going to made his announcement yesterday on the special counsel.
And they've been consistent about that because that was their take during the Trump administration or during the Trump Mar-a-Lago raid, which I always thought was baloney. We really believe that, like Joe doesn't know, although it is Joe Biden, so maybe he really doesn't know.
That is something that we learned, like many of you, watching the news. I'm not going to get into anything further from that. I can't speak to this person who you just mentioned who has been, I don't know, having conversations or making comments about this. I'm just not going to get into that. I'm not going to give reactions from here. What I can tell you is that, again, I'm going to refer you to the White House counsel and office to talk to my colleagues on any particular questions that you may have that's related to this process. And if it's something that you want to know specifically about the review, I will refer you to the Department of Justice.
When President Biden did say, God willing, he hoped to be able to say more soon. I mean, it seemed like he was thinking that the investigation would end soon. Was he surprised?
I'm just not going to go beyond what the president said. I will say this is that we are going to continue to fully cooperate. As I've said, we have talked about this at length. We've had multiple statements on this. And again, we want to be prudent here. I'm going to be consistent here. Any questions that you may have about this process, I would refer you to the White House counsel.
Another topic. I wanted to ask about the administration's appeal.
All right. So again, I just have to say we have to be prudent. And again, I'm just not, we've already been very clear about this. And one more time, look, I know you have questions, but again, all right. So we'll continue on. We have two more clips. Now, this guy drops off a good doozy to round this whole segment out. But this is another question from NBC News. She asks about full cooperation. And here is Karine.
Thank you so much. Does the White House and does the president agree to fully cooperate with the special counsel investigation?
We have said that we are going to continue to fully cooperate. We have been. The president's lawyers and team has been fully cooperating with the Department of Justice, and they're certainly going to do that with the special counsel.
And so, by that reasoning, would the president agree to sit for an on-the-record, in-person interview?
I'm not going to get into specifics.
Would the president sit down with us so we could ask him questions on the record? We'd love to see that. That would be ill-advised from a criminal defense standpoint. Not a good call. Don't put Joe Biden in front of a camera on this issue. In fact, probably don't put Joe Biden in front of the camera ever again on this issue. They have to be petrified about what he's going to say the next time he is out in front of the cameras, which is why every time he's talked on this, he's reading from a statement. Because if he says the wrong thing, it starts to open him up personally for liability. She doesn't want to say anything. He doesn't want to say anything. You notice Trump doesn't talk a whole lot about the documents, right? He's not out there making admissions, making statements. His lawyers are doing that. The benefit that Trump has is he's not the sitting president. Joe Biden is. He's expected to talk. Donald Trump doesn't have to go where he doesn't want to go.
Specifics or get ahead of what's going to happen. I'm not going to get into hypotheticals because that is a hypothetical. What I will say is we have addressed this multiple times at length, and we are going to continue. The president's team is going to continue to fully cooperate with the Department of Justice, and we respect that process, and that's what we're going to do.
The president has said he hopes to speak about this soon. When can people expect to hear from him about this?
Don't have, again, that's
never.
That is something that I can't, I don't have a magic wand here. I don't know when that's going to happen. What I can say is his team is going to fully cooperate with the Department of Justice. Let's not forget, the president said during the campaign that when it comes to the Department of Justice independence, he respects that. And that is something that he had said was incredibly important to make sure that they had their independence. That's why we say We're going to make sure that they have their independence, and that's why I'm saying that we're going to refer to Department of Justice.
And let me just ask you a big picture question here. Does the White House, broadly speaking, have an obligation to share not just with the National Archives, but with the American people when the existence of classified information is found in a private location?
Again, there's a process in this.
But just big picture, not necessarily in this instance, but is it the policy of the White House that they should share that information not just with the National Archives, but with the Americans?
So
if this happens again, do you guys have a policy for this? Like, are you going to share it with us next time? Or is this your policy? Should we just expect this? If you find stuff that is in this category, we should just expect this is the norm, like you're just not going to tell us? Or do you have a different policy?
I'll say this, Kristen. We have been transparent in the last couple of days.
Yes, the last couple
ongoing process.
The last couple of days you have.
When it is appropriate.
Sort of.
And we have shared, again, I've been here almost every day, not every day, but from Wednesday, yesterday, and today, taking your questions on this. The White House counsel.
Unfortunately for you, because CBS broke the story. Otherwise, you probably would have just kept mum about it.
Has put out a very extensive multiple statements on this as well. And you all, I know you all have been talking, many of you here have been talking to my colleague in the White House counsel. So what the actions that we took were right actions that his team took in dealing with the Department of Justice. Okay,
do you see how she flopped on that one? Oh, I just caught that. She said how we handled it, how Biden's team handled it. Let's listen to that again closely. Where was that?
When it is appropriate. And we have shared, again, I've been here almost every day, not every day, but from Wednesday, yesterday, and today.
Wow, 3 days.
Taking your questions
Busy.
on this. The White House counsel has put out a very extensive multiple statements on this as well. And you all, I know you all have been talking, many of you here have been talking to my colleague in the White House counsel. So what the actions that we took were right actions that his team took.
You heard that. The actions that we took, that his team took. All right. All right. Oh, all right. The actions that we took. We're going to put a pin in that. We're coming back to that one. That is at whatever time this is. All right. Almost 1 hour in on the clock. All right.
Were right actions that his team took in dealing with the Department of Justice and also the archives. Look,
you guys have answered questions when the press has broken in the news.
Because it's an ongoing process. Because, again, it is an ongoing process. There is a process here. The Department of Justice is independent. We respect that process. But again, I have taken questions. I can take two questions through 100 questions. I have answered.
And I'm not going to answer any of them.
Questions as almost every day on this issue. And again, anything else that you may have, anything that's related to the review, I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
One last question, because I know you've got to move on here. But the president campaigned on the argument that he would restore confidence. We know that he's in the process of deciding whether to officially announce he's running for re-election. Does this episode undercut that argument that he would restore confidence? Because here we have
Good question.
in the headlines that he is now under investigation.
He's restored independence in the Department of Justice. That's what we're doing here. When we're saying we're going to refer you to the Department of Justice, that is restoring independence as it relates to issues like this. And that is important to the president. And it's been consistent.
It's also very convenient for them. They don't have to answer any questions. Any prosecution questions? DOJ. Any process questions? White House counsel. Anything else? Trump did it.
What I am saying about investigations has been consistent for the last 2 years. You've heard me over and over. Again, when it comes to a legal issue or a matter like this, we have always referred to the Department of Justice. So there's nothing here different here. We have said we wanted to restore the independence of the Department of Justice. That is what you're seeing. And again, this has been done in a transparent way. When it relates to how this was dealt with the Department of Justice.
It wasn't transparent at all.
The president takes this very, very seriously. Any other questions that you may have about...
You could start a bingo card. Where's C-SPAN review? You could start a bingo card on this one.
About this particular issue, about the review, I would refer you to the Department of Justice. You guys have been in touch with my colleagues at the White House Counsel Office, and I would suggest that you continue to reach out. Go ahead, Stephen.
Thanks. I just want to.
All right, so I want to come back to that one statement where she said it was, we handled this appropriately. Whoops, rewind. What I meant was Biden's team handled it appropriately, because there's a very interesting follow-up to this from this fella. This makes it all worth it. Karine Jean Pierre asked about the details. What did she know? When did she know it? And was she involved?
I just want to press you on that point about the idea of disclosures when it's appropriate. You describe it as a process, but it sort of feels like a strategy, a communication strategy to protect the president from political damage. Was it the hope and expectation here that this would have remained a private matter and not have been subject to public disclosure?
Look, Stephen, that's your version of the case. I've been very clear here, and I've answered that question multiple times in different versions, right, in the last couple of days. Look, want to be very clear. There's a process here. We are going to respect the process.
Gosh.
This is all part of the Department of Justice process, and we are cooperating fully. We are cooperating fully in this process. And again, the president believes that the Justice Department and its independence needed to be restored. That's what you have seen under this administration the last 2 years. And I want to be consistent in what I'm saying. I want to be prudent in what I'm saying when I say that we are going to defer any questions related to this to the Department of Justice and any other items that you have. If you don't want to talk to the Department of Justice, you're free to talk to the White House Counsel Office. I know you guys have been in touch with my colleagues.
She's
there.
filibustering. Now, he's going to ask another follow-up, okay? We're going to come right back to this. But his first question was about, was there a hope that you could basically just bury this, right? That you could do your investigation, you'd appoint Lausch, Merrick Garland would look at this thing, there would be no special counsel, documents would go back over to the National Archives, nobody would be any wiser. The whole thing would just be forgotten about. It would just be dealt with unceremoniously. Oh, it's just a document problem. It's an overdue library book. The reason why we had to go investigate Trump is because there was no cooperation. He was obstructing, and it turned into this big whole thing. But this is just ordinary library book business. Karine, were you hoping that you could just paper over this whole thing? Because it seems like you were kind of doing that. I mean, as we saw in this timeline, we can rewind the clock all the way back, and it looks like they were literally waiting months for this. This all happened back in November. Delay, past the election. Second batch of documents, December 20th. Mark Elias is deleting tweets all over the place. Special counsel is now needed and confirmed. And then it breaks on January 9th. So, Karine, you just said it was we who were involved in all of this, or some sort of, maybe. There's a lot of activity going on here that is not keeping this stuff, or that is keeping this stuff hidden from the American people, which could be a big problem, because if there are additional inquiries about this,
I just want to press you on that.
We may find out exactly who was involved. And the follow-up question comes here.
In touch with my colleagues there.
We have done both, but let me just ask you, because oftentimes in the careers of White House press secretaries, there comes a time where they are asked, what they knew and when they knew it. Were you or any member of your staff involved in the crafting of a strategy as to when this disclosure should be made in advance of CBS News breaking the story on Monday evening?
No.
Oh boy. Did you hear that question, my friends? Karine, we know when this was reported to you, and it was months ago. We also know when it was disclosed, not by you, but by CBS. Were you involved? Because there might come a time where people are calling you a criminal. People are saying you did something wrong and that you tried to cover up very important information. Were you involved in any of those discussions, Karine?
Colleagues there.
We have done both, but let me just ask you, because oftentimes in the careers of White House press secretaries, there comes a time where they are asked, what they knew and when they knew it. Were you or any member of your staff involved in the crafting of a strategy as to when this disclosure should be made in advance of CBS News breaking the story on Monday evening?
No. Okay.
No, she didn't like that answer. And if you listen, headphones users, if you're listening out there, somebody says, ooh, in there. Somebody in the microphone says, ooh, that's not me. Watch, I'll shut up right here. Listen, after this question drops, somebody says, ooh, which is exactly right. Because it's asking Karine, what's your position on your own criminality in this?
Where they are asked, what they knew and when they knew it. Were you or any member of your staff involved in the crafting of a strategy as to when this disclosure should be made in advance of CBS News breaking the story on Monday evening?
No. Okay.
Next question.
Did you have a question?
Next question. Yikes. Oof. So the media is having a lot of fun with that one. Now, the Democrats know this is not going to be working out well for them. There's a lot of reports that there are rumors amongst the ranks that Biden has dug himself into a hole of his own making. You see a photograph of Sleepy Joe communicating with the press. Politico tells us President Biden's approval numbers are rising, they say. Democrats are as loyal as they've ever been. But now Biden is digging a hole of his own. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced on Thursday appointing special counsel, as we know. They say the two cases are different, but one Democratic Party operative said the following, quote, I think it takes the whole Trump scandal off the table. Wah, wah, wah. Most polls show that voters don't give an F about this stuff, but the media momentum is real. Elected Democrats have rallied behind the president, with House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries telling reporters that he has full faith and credit in President Biden and the documents matter. Biden, Jeffries, and others told reporters that he's doing everything to take appropriate steps and how to move forward in a very responsible fashion. Capitol Hill Democrats, they've called for briefings. Some people like Hank Johnson have said that maybe documents were planted there and other wild theories. But Capitol Hill Democrats say that the GOP is going to distract from the real story, turning it all into a circus. But they did say Democrat Party elders said that it was frustrating to hand Republicans, quote, a hammer. But like others, the person said it was still too early to conclude that it would have a lasting negative political impact. Comparing this to what Trump did isn't like apples and oranges. It's like comparing apples and arsenic, said some weirdo. So, they're going to try to continue to distinguish this. I honestly think Trump has a serious advantage in this whole saga legally. First of all, he was the president. And number two, he's not in office anymore. So he's not obligated to speak. So he has a little bit more of the right to remain silent in his favor. The Democrats and Biden, right, he technically has that, yeah, but he's the president. He's sitting there. They're going to have to talk about this or else. And just like this was going to be a death by a thousand cuts type of strategy with Trump every day, but as he's running, just drip, 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 bad information. It's going to be the same thing for Joe Biden. The question will be whether it's enough to sort of cause him to not run again. We'll have to see. Jim Jordan, speaking with CBS News, been asked about Biden's confidential document scandal.
There's been a disclosure of another batch in another location. Yeah. Does that
many locations?
Well, again, I think there's tons of questions. Where's the raid? Where's the pictures? Where's the special counsel? Some have called for that. What is a batch? No, it's more than one document. Is it two? Is it 2,000? How many more batches are coming? Where is the second location?
Does it matter to you these are relevant to his term as vice president as opposed to president?
Well, I would think that would only add to the weight of it.
Yeah, makes it worse.
Because?
Didn't have classification
because
authority.
The Supreme Court's been clear, the president is the person who has the ultimate ability to declassify documents. The vice president can handle classified material, obviously, because of an executive order, so he had them. But I do think, 6 years, were these documents at the Penn Center now for 6 years, or most of that 6-year time frame? So, again, there are tons of questions, but the White House doesn't seem to have many answers right now.
You mentioned the word raids. I well recall when the search warrant was executed at Mar-a-Lago, perhaps you, but certainly other Republicans said there shouldn't have been a raid in the first place. Are you in favor of raids in matters like this, or are you in favor of not raids?
I didn't say that. I just said there's an obvious, it seems to me.
What's your bottom line on that? Should there be raids, or can this be handled differently? And should it be handled differently?
I think what I'm saying is the double standard, I think, is starting to become evident. We've seen the double standard time and time again. We saw how Hillary Clinton's, when she had classified material, how that was handled versus how it was handled with President Trump. My understanding, from what I know, is President Trump was working with the Justice. He let the Justice Department come down and go through Mar-a-Lago. He said they said lock stuff up in this certain room, put a padlock on it. He did that. So he was working with them. I just see the double standard as the concern. I think
what do
so
you
many
think
people
the standard
have.
should be? Classified documents are serious matters. They should be handled appropriately. But what should the standard be? I understand the point you're making about a double standard. What should the standard be? How should this be approached from the Justice Department's point of view?
I don't think they know. I mean,
what do you think? Do you have an opinion on that?
I think it should be consistent. So you tell me. So look, you got classified material.
Right answer on that one.
Let's treat it in a consistent fashion. That's what I'm saying. And this is part of this overall concern so many Americans have. I've heard it from constituents all the time. They're sick of the double standard that they see out there. With how conservatives get. You can pick your example. Look. We just had this debate on the floor yesterday. The FACE Act, which says that you can't restrict someone's access to an abortion clinic, the Justice Department has said, it's on their website, that applies to crisis pregnancy centers as well. But we sure see a double standard here because there have been over 100 crisis pregnancy centers and churches attacked in the aftermath of the leak of the Dobbs opinion. And to my knowledge, no one's been prosecuted. But yet you had the gentleman outside of Philadelphia, Mr. Houck, Mark Houck, whose door was kicked in, who was arrested in front of his wife and 7 kids for praying in front of an abortion clinic. That sure seems like a double standard. So what we want is consistency, equal application of the law. And it's frankly why the Republicans have set up this committee to look at
which we will get
how there has not been equal application of the law from our Justice Department.
Right. Whatever the standard is the standard, but it is equally applied. I think that's the right answer. Right. And that's all I think anybody's asking for, really. If they're going to prosecute Trump and they're going to go bananas off the wall, got to do it to Biden. I was joking about Trump, called it overdue library books, said much ado about nothing. This was a political hit job and they were making too much of it. If they wanted to, apply that standard to this, okay, presidents take documents and this stuff is just a thing, right? It just happens. It's part of the job. Okay, I could live with that. And we wouldn't be making a big deal about Biden at all. But they started it. They set the standard. And so now they got to live with it. And we'll see how that works out for them. Probably won't work out so well. In fact, Kevin McCarthy is saying they're shaking stuff up. So while Jim Jordan is going to be leading the new Weaponization of Government Committee, there are other former Democrats who are former committee members who are currently Democrats who are not going to be on them anymore, including people like Swalwell.
Why?
You said you're going to let Democrats appoint their own members to the committee, but you've also indicated you're not going to let them appoint.
I was very clear early on. Let me phrase something very direct to you. If you got the briefing I got from the FBI, you wouldn't have Swalwell on any committee. And you're going to tell me other Democrats couldn't fill that slot? He cannot get a security clearance in the private sector.
Wow.
So would you like to give him a government clearance? You asked me questions about Santos. You asked the questions about Swalwell. Not only was he getting a clearance, he was inside an intel committee. He had more information than the majority of all the members. Did you ever raise that issue? No, but you should have. You're going to tell me there's 200 other Democrats that couldn't fill that slot, but they kept him on it? The only way that they even knew it came forward is when they went to nominate him to the Intel Committee. And then the FBI came and told the leadership then, he's got a problem. And they kept him on. That jeopardized all of us.
Big gavel energy, baby.
Adam Schiff openly lied to the American public.
All right, so we're listening into
BGE from the KMC. Kevin McCarthy in the House saying, yeah, we're getting on these committees and we're going to use them to our full effect. And Jim Jordan's going to be leading one of them. So we'll see. All right, we'll see what this goes into. We've got a special counsel. We've got Karine Jean Pierre having a really hard time with the media. They're going to continue to ask and probably get very little questions. We will continue to fill out this timeline as the story unfolds so we can piece together all of the nefarious misdeeds. And we hope you join us as we do. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you are watching this. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one.